Hey guys, Josh here, and recently I had the chance to play quite a few upcoming games, most of them farming sims, but a few are in other genres as well, and I played them either through demos publicly available on Steam, or while I was at PAX East last month. In this video, I'll be going over all of the different games that I tried, give you my thoughts on each one, and hopefully this should help you decide what to wishlist or buy in the coming months. And if it does, please consider leaving a like on the video to support the channel. Before we get into our list, this video is sponsored by Lawnmowing Simulator for the Nintendo Switch. In this game, you get to start your very own lawn care business, fulfilling contracts in the British countryside. First, check the ground for debris, then hop on your lawnmower and start mowing the grass, all while making sure you don't damage flowers or leave grass cuttings on the paths. Use a trimmer to work on tighter areas and corners, and the better of a job you do, the more money you get that you can then use to buy better equipment and expand your business. It has a nice balance between realistic mechanics and a casual playstyle, and I found it to be a very relaxing, slow-paced game that I could play kind of mindlessly, but there's also enough content and modes to keep things interesting. For example, the Switch version has an exclusive Quick Mow mode, which allows you to start mowing right away on a random map with random equipment, ideal for shorter play sessions on the go. If you're interested, check out Lawnmowing Simulator for the Nintendo Switch with the links in the description. You can either get the base game and DLC separately, or the Landmark Edition, which includes all of the DLC. And now, let's talk about the first game I got to play while I was at PAX East, and it's one that I included in a video back in May 2021, so it's been in development for quite some time. And while we still don't have an exact date, Everafter Falls should finally be releasing this summer on Steam. In this game, you wake up after an accident and find out that your whole life was a simulation. You don't remember anything about the place you find yourself in, but you meet a bunch of fun characters who seem to know you quite well already. I found the dialogues had a pretty good humor, and I am curious to see where they're going with the story, as it seems there's a bit more going on than in most farming games. In terms of gameplay, it also does a few interesting things. One of your very first tasks is to go retrieve your pet, who will accompany you for the rest of the game. While you have an axe and a pickaxe to gather things like wood and stone, you can instruct your pet to till the soil and water crops, if I remember correctly, up to 6 tiles at a time at first, but then a lot more later on, letting you do other things while your pet is working. I think this is an interesting twist to the farming mechanics, and it also makes it so you don't have to carry as many tools such as a hoe or a watering can. Later on, you'll even be able to get drones that will automate most of the farm work. However, I didn't get to experience those in the demo. It seems like the intention of the developers is to make sure you spend as less time as possible on the farming, so you can spend more time on other tasks. Another fun mechanic in Everafter Falls are the cards. As you progress, you'll unlock different cards that you eat, and they'll give you perks for the rest of your playthrough. For example, one could increase some of your stats, your efficiency with certain chores, or even allowing your pet to heal you, which will be useful as you explore the 4 dungeons that the game has to offer. So Everafter Fall does have a few fun ideas, but there are also some things I didn't like too much. One of these things was the fishing. It was a bit confusing, but basically there's a fish in the yellow center, and that center is protected by 2 circles. One small gray circle and a bigger purple one, and there's a hook at the top of everything that will drop straight down, and the circles are rotating and you have to stop them at the correct time so that the hook can fall into them. I think that if you get to the purple circle, but not all the way to the yellow center, you get a different fish, but I'm not too sure as honestly the game did not explain it too well. I'm sure my explanations are not much clearer, but it was difficult to bring the hook all the way to the center, and I usually do enjoy a challenging fishing mechanic, but I found this one to be quite annoying and I was not a big fan. I also got to participate in a festival. There was a debug mode in the demo, so I was able to skip around to different dates. And to be fair, maybe that specific festival I picked was not fully ready to be shown, but basically there was an animal race where I had to bet on which animal would win the race, and the actual race, like the animations and the graphics and everything, felt very cheap. It was really underwhelming and there was not much else to do during the festival. I wish I had footage to show you, but it seemed like it needed a lot more polish and content for the festival to be actually fun. The game as a whole also has very strong Flash Games vibes with its art style, which is personally not my favorite, but the presentation is well done for the most part, and I did not encounter bugs or anything like that while I played. Overall, Everafter Falls has some good ideas. I did enjoy the demo and I will play it when it releases, but also I'm not sure yet if it will do enough and manage to keep my attention for long when I already have so many amazing farming games to play. Right after, I went and tried the demo for Littlelands, a top-down adventure game that feels like a classic Zelda game, but with a touch of farming and life sim elements to it. You create your character, which doesn't take too long, but you still have a few options to pick from, and then you grab your backpack in your room and leave to explore the world. What stood out to me the most with this game were its graphics. It reminded me a bit of the remake of A Link to the Past, or even something like Harvest Moon 64, with chibi characters in a fun, colorful world that looks like clay. The gameplay was fun as well, but the demo had a time limit of 10 minutes, so my experience was quite short compared to the other games and I felt a bit rushed. The game seemed to encourage exploration, talking to the different characters, doing things like breaking pots and finding new items and secrets, and I felt like there was so many things I could do, but because I didn't have too much time, I just walked a bit around town, and then I got a quest to eliminate some monsters in a cave, so I headed there as quick as I could. I found a little wooden stick that I could assign to either X or Y on the controller, and the combat was pretty simple, just one button to swing, and it felt smooth and responsive, once again kind of like what you would expect from a top-down Zelda game. During my short adventure, I received some berry seeds, and of course I really wanted to try the farming, but unfortunately I did not have time to plant them. That being said, the game has some farming. I think it will be pretty basic, maybe just plant and wait, and you'll also have other side activities such as fishing, catching bugs, and cooking. My first impression of Littlelands is great. I love the atmosphere and the little bit that I played, but I just wish the demo was either slightly longer or structured in a different way so I could have explored the world a little bit more and tried the other game mechanics such as farming. So I'm excited to see more of what this game has to offer whenever it releases on Steam, and I hope they release a longer demo as well for everyone to try and get a better idea of the experience. The last game I got the chance to try at PAX doesn't have any farming, but it is really cozy and I had an amazing time with it. That game is called Woodo, and it is a relaxing puzzle game that feels a bit similar to Unpacking, but also quite different. You have various environments that are all colorless at first, so you'll see the shapes for all of the items and furniture, but without the colors and details. On the right side of the screen, you can scroll through different pieces, and you simply drag and drop the pieces to where they belong in the scene, and you do that until you put everything in the right place. It's an extremely simple premise, and as you put everything back together, the narrator will tell you a little story that she has related to that place. The demo went through a quick tutorial where I had to put together a small chest, and then I jumped into the first proper scene, which was a dining room that took me maybe 20 to 30 minutes to complete. The game is really just dragging pieces to complete the puzzle, and that might sound a bit boring, but I found it so relaxing. First of all, the game looks beautiful, the environments are filled with little details that are fun to look at, and as the title suggests, everything is made out of wood, giving the game a very unique charm. It actually reminded me of those DIY miniature house kits, because even things like food, plants, or birds, just everything is wood, and it feels like you're building a cute little world. The only thing, however, is that you don't have any creative freedom as to where things will go, so in that way it feels a little bit different from Unpacking, and it's really just piecing together a puzzle. So the game looks fantastic, but it also feels just as good. The controls are simple and intuitive, and one little detail that I loved is that when you rotate the camera, the items in your bar will also rotate so that they remain at the proper angle, making it easier to spot them in the scene, which is a very nice attention to detail from the developers. A few of the items did take me a bit of time to find, and things might be different in later stages, but the part that I played was still not very difficult, so it is a game that anyone should be able to enjoy. If you ever do have a hard time, there is a hint button that will show you where your next item needs to go, and there doesn't seem to be any penalty for using it, so you can tell they really just wanted Woodo to be a relaxing, stress-free experience. There's not much footage out there for this game, I wish I could show you a bit more, but also there's not much else to say. It's really well done, the atmosphere, the vibes are great, the gameplay is pretty minimalist, but it does what it's supposed to do. I like to play puzzle games, for example, before going to bed to just de-stress and empty my mind, and I feel like this will be a perfect game for that whenever it releases on Steam. The next game is Sunnyside. I played this one through a demo on Steam, and it's still available if you're interested. This is another one of these games that I've been looking forward to for a long time. They launched a Kickstarter campaign back in 2021, and they were aiming for a release in 2022. However, a lot has happened since with the game, some issues with the development, but it is now getting closer to its release on Steam and consoles. I could probably make a whole video just talking about this game, but I'll give you a summary of my first thoughts after playing the demo, which lets you experience the first 10 days of the game. The first thing you get to do in the demo is create your character, and right there you have so many possibilities. It's probably one of the strongest character creator I've seen so far in a farming sim, maybe along my time at Sandrock, and it's a lot closer to something like The Sims, where you have sliders for different facial features, as well as the shape of your body. You have lots of options for details like moles. You can have two-toned hairstyles, combine any colors you'd like. There's a good selection of accessories like piercings, glasses, watches, and necklaces to choose from. And you can also change the color for each part of your clothes separately in order to create unique outfits. You then pick your name, your birthday, and your gender expression. Instead of picking options like male or female, there is a feminine to masculine slider, and it doesn't affect your choice for clothing or anything like that. However, I learned from the developers that it does affect who you can romance. In most games, you can romance any romanceable character, no matter your gender, but Sunnyside will have certain characters only attracted, for example, to masculine characters. While this might reduce the pool of candidates you can choose from, it will allow the developers to create stronger personalities and unique backstories for their characters. I like the idea, and the characters I met were interesting, but I wish the game would maybe tell you about those mechanics when you pick your gender to help you in your decision, and also it's not clear where the limits are. For example, if I want my character to attract characters who are interested in masculine people, will it work if I'm a 6 or a 7, or should it be a 10? So it can be hard to guess where to put your character on the scale. And I feel like that's an important mechanic to know because dating is a big part of Sunnyside. It seems like they're putting a big emphasis on that part of the game, and you can call other characters at any time and ask them to hang out. And you can then choose the location, such as a cafe, the hot springs, the movie theater, and more. Each character has their own preferences, and you'll get to know them a little bit more with each date that comes with its own unique dialogues. I found that mechanic quite fun, and I appreciate how it's not like other games where you can only go on dates after becoming really close to someone. You can do so right away. However, I noticed that there were also lots of little oversights. For example, if it was raining outside and my date location was inside, my character would still be carrying his umbrella. I was also able to go in the movie theater around 6 AM even though the schedule says it opened at 10, and I had a date in the tea house that was not even built yet, so I was just kind of like in a transparent blueprint kind of building. Of course, the game is still in development, and I have no doubt that these things will get fixed, but it made the experience feel not very polished. That lack of polish also led to some memorable moments, however, like when I fell off my bicycle and trying to get back on, I got catapulted to the other side of the map and started spinning underwater. It's not typically what I look for in a farming game, but I can't deny that I had a great time. When it worked, the bicycle was so useful. I played a previous version of Sunnyside back in 2021, and I felt like the map was way too big and getting places was tedious, but riding around on the bike makes everything so much more pleasant. There's also now a city that you can go to with different shops, and it's a nice change of pace from the countryside. Which brings me to one thing that makes Sunnyside different from a lot of other farming sims, and that's all of the modern features that it has. There's a city you can go to, a drone to take pictures and plan your farm's layout, a phone to interact with other characters or order seeds online, a hose to water your crops. They're really bringing the genre to 2024 with modern conveniences, all while keeping the cozy, small farm vibe and not something industrial like the Farming Simulator series. That's what I really like with Sunnyside. They're not afraid to question the formula of farming sims, and they're trying new things instead of just sticking to what works, and I think that's what more developers need to do if they want their farming games to stand out. However, sometimes new things work well, sometimes they don't. Sunnyside now has some danger with caves to explore and enemies to fight using a card-based battle system. You have different cards, each with their own elemental attributes, and this is something the developers have told me they were still working on, but as of right now, there's no clear tutorial for the combat, and I did find it a bit confusing as a lot of the mechanics were not explained, and it didn't feel that captivating, but I'm hoping that will change. Fortunately, if you're not into combat, the game also offers a good amount of difficulty settings. For example, you can make it easier to gain experience during fights, meaning you won't have to engage in combat as much. Overall, I'm really happy with what I was able to experience in my first 10 days of Sunnyside, which took me about 4 hours and a half to complete, so if you're looking for a lengthy demo, this is the one. At the time that I played it, there was no way to save, but they did enable saving now, so you no longer have to finish it all in one go. Just one thing to keep in mind, however, as far as I know, your progress will not carry over to the full game. The only thing that you'll be keeping is the appearance of your character. Sunnyside has a ton of innovative ideas that it's bringing to the farming sim genre, and it truly has the potential to be an amazing game. However, as of right now, it still feels unpolished in many places, so hopefully they can work on that before it releases later this year. The last game, Chill Town, is not a demo, but it recently released in early access and I wanted to include it. Chill Town is a life sim game with a premise quite similar to Animal Crossing New Horizons. So you take a flight to a little island that's not doing so well, and you will be helping, rebuilding, and inviting new villagers to hopefully one day get the island to a 5-star rating. You can fish, farm, decorate, as well as befriend pals, these lovely creatures found all around the island. To make things a little bit more interesting, the game includes a great selection of lo-fi music and promises idle mechanics, so in theory, you could, for example, have the game running in the background while you're doing something else and still make some progress in the game. I played an early build of the game back in August last year. I had some mixed feelings at the time, but let's see if things change with the early access release on Steam. First thing I noticed was that the character creation has been considerably improved. They revamped the faces based on the feedback from the players. There are a bit more options, such as the possibility to change the eyebrow, eyelashes, and hair colors separately, and I can tell that there has been improvement since the last time. However, characters can still look a bit off. For some reason, the hair is always super shiny, but the skin sometimes looks very flat, and the contrast can be a bit jarring. Overall though, I'm glad that they've been working on it, listening to the feedback, and it is one step in the right direction. Similarly, last time I played, I had some complaints with the art style being inconsistent, as many of the assets had completely different styles, and it was making it difficult to feel immersed. I did notice improvements there as well, but while things do make a bit more sense in terms of style, there are still lots of issues, especially with size and proportions. For example, your character barely fits in the bed you start with. The stove, on the other hand, is way too high, which would make it impossible to cook. Some benches look super small, other chairs and tables are way too big, and the scaling is just all over the place, which once again makes it really hard to get immersed. A lot of the interiors also are completely unfinished, and a lot of work still has to be done in the art department as a whole. In terms of gameplay, it has some good ideas, but unfortunately they don't work too well as of right now. One unique mechanics of Chill Town is the ability to send letters to other players, and I love that kind of interaction. However, each time I tried typing a letter, somehow a debug menu kept popping up, which is usually meant to be used by the developers and shouldn't be that easily accessible. And I have no idea how I brought it up, but I had such a hard time getting rid of it and typing my letter. I don't think I ever managed to finish my letter, but I got an inventory full of fish, which I then sold, and I don't think I'll ever have to worry about money again. The game also promises idle mechanics, so for example, there is currently an automatic fishing feature, where you should be able to pick a spot to fish, and your character should go there and fish without you having to do anything. Unfortunately, as of right now, it only catches one fish and then stops, so you have to activate the auto-fishing after every single fish, which completely defeats the purpose of that mechanic in the first place. I also noticed that the game had a lot of little oversights, For example, at the beginning, there is a river separating two sections of the island, and the bridge is broken, but you can teleport to the other side by selecting the location in the automatic fishing menu, leading you to that area before properly unlocking access to it. The game is actually filled with these oversights, bugs, inconsistencies, and most of the game mechanics are not really interesting enough to make it worth the pain. The one thing I really enjoyed with Chilltown, however, was the music. There is a pretty good selection of lo-fi tracks, and you can change them at any time. So once the idle mechanics work properly, it could be fun to have the game running in the background with some relaxing music while you're doing other things. Right now, however, it is sad to say, but even though it does have a few good ideas, and I know it's a really small team behind it who I'm sure are doing their best, but it is really hard for me to recommend Chilltown, at least in its current state. It feels very rough, clunky, a lot of things don't make sense or don't work as intended, and while it could be fun in the future, right now it feels like an alpha, something you would play mostly just to help the developers find bugs, rather than something you would play to have a good time. So these are the 5 games I got the chance to play recently. Let me know which ones you're the most interested in. For me, I feel like Woodo left the biggest impression, even though it is the simplest of them all, which demonstrates that sometimes less is more. But I will keep an eye on all of these games and play them whenever they release. Also, don't forget to check out Lawnmowing Simulator for the Nintendo Switch. Leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next video.